what's the deal, man? It's your boy Shane with Island Mogul, man. We're here live in Long Beach, California at the Bored and Hungry restaurant. We're here with the owner for Vi. He's gonna show us around the restaurant, drop some gems, and hopefully we get to try some of these amazing burgers, man. Come follow me.
They told me keep my head up, my time coming, I always knew I'd be a shooting star. My dogs are different, used to wake up and just shoot at cars. Said I knew better, but it's hard when you're not using knowledge. What doesn't kill you makes you strong, it only took me 4 choice to make it right, saving in life.
So Vi, we're here at your place of business, man. Thank you for opening your doors for us, actually shutting things down for us to come through and pull up on you, man. How are you feeling, bro?
Feeling great, man. Feeling great. Thank you guys so much for coming by and being able to provide the Island Mogul platform for a lot of our Polynesian entrepreneurs to tell a story. So yeah, welcome to our place, man.
You know, let's take it back a little bit. Growing up in Carson, California,
sir.
You know, child of immigrant parents who came here from Samoa. Did you ever think one day that you would be the owner of a restaurant, yet alone the world's first NFT restaurant, man? Did you ever think that far back when you were younger?
Yeah, unlike other kids, man, I had a wild imagination. You know, I was, you know, growing up, although, you know, born and raised right here down the street in Carson, man, my imagination just ran wild. And luckily enough, I give credit to my father, who was the first entrepreneur within the family. He had a painting business. And lo and behold, he used to paint custom homes in communities like a Palos Verdes or Newport Beach or Manhattan Beach. And so when we used to go up there and actually, you know, help him paint these homes, I would just sit there and just dream. I was a dreamer. I'm the worst worker. You can take me on the job now. I have no clue what I'm doing, right? But I would just sit there and I would dream of how these other immigrant families from Asia and from different parts of the world would come here and build businesses and live in these type of communities. And so I noticed it wasn't a language thing because they had a language barrier as well as my father, but they just did certain things to actually live in these affluent communities. And so when I came across that, it planted the seed of, man, one day I want to live in these type of communities as well. Raise my family there as well.
And that's dope. That's dope. And the way that you've done it is cool because, you know, you've kept it close to home, meaning, you know what I'm saying? You know, some people start things, they get a little success and they just leave, you know what I'm saying? But why has it been so important for you to keep your roots business-wise, like within arm's reach of your community?
Mainly because growing up, I didn't see a lot of successful entrepreneurs within the community, right? And so I strategically, obviously my day-to-day is in apparel, and I left the shop. I strategically set it up in Carson. That way I'll be accessible to the young ones that want to go in apparel or want to go into the restaurant business or the film business or whatnot. So it was more of an accessibility thing for a lot of the youngsters that want to pursue their passions in entrepreneurship. I'm just a phone call away. They know that my office hours are 24 hours, right? 24/7, and they can come by and they can stop by and ask whatever questions or whatnot. But yeah, it was more of an accessibility thing that the community can get to me and ask whatever questions and whatever relationships I have, they have as well.
I'm getting a theme in your life, man. Not only do you want to do well in business, you know what I'm saying, but you also want to look fly, you know what I'm saying? Keep the drip going. Obviously owner of Island Ave, you know what I'm saying? You guys have made big strides with that. Just celebrated being in Nordstrom's, right? Yeah. How did it feel to have success in that side of things too? Being able to go to a Nordstrom and pick up some clothes by a Polynesian brand, that's dope, man. Yeah.
So it was obviously a great feat in and of itself. It was a historic moment. Thank you guys so much for coming out and capturing that moment. But it goes back to, as I had mentioned earlier, in terms of my imagination. I created these goals in mind at a young age. And I said, well, whether I'm gonna go into apparel, whether I'm gonna go into the restaurant business or film or whatnot, I was gunning for the throne. Like, if we're gonna play ball, we're gonna play in the big leagues, right? And so I took the steps, first off in apparel, to say, if I'm gonna create a brand, it has to be a global brand, but at the same time, keep the authenticity of who we are as a people, right? Right. And not lose sight of that. And although I didn't grow up in the islands, I couldn't forget my upbringing in Los Angeles, specifically in Carson. So I wanted to mesh those two cultures together. And lo and behold, we created Island Avenue in 2014. And so I had this path and roadmap that one day I wanted to see it in a retail icon like Nordstrom's. And so obviously, you know, we're playing the long game, and it was a long journey in and of itself, but lo and behold, we was able to celebrate it this year, and we went on a fashion tour. So if you follow the brand, we was able to tackle 4 states and 5 different Nordstroms, and we had activations in all different Nordstroms. And so we was able to bring out the culture, display it at a high level, but most importantly, man, the great thing that we saw was our people came out. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to send a message to a Nordstrom that we have purchasing power as a people, because at the end of the day, it was a great feat, but also we're still trying to run a business.
Oh yeah, just so you know, best burger in America, right here at Boy and Hungry.
Your restaurant here offers a host of different vegan options, right? And that's something that you've embraced in your lifestyle. When did you decide to go vegan, man? Why is that important to you?
Yeah. So I think we're going back about 10 years now.
Okay.
And I truly believe, just going back to the concept of entrepreneurship, you know, they say it's a marathon, right? And strategically, I actually ran a marathon in 2005. And so what I noticed, that if you compare entrepreneurship as a journey, as playing the long game, as it being a marathon, then logically speaking, that I gotta be healthy for this journey, right? Mm-hmm. And so I started to examine the things that I was consuming, whether it was food or whether it was alcohol, all these other substances. And I said, look, if I have a goal in mind and I have to set up a lifestyle in order to accomplish the goal, one of those things was, okay, well, what am I eating? And then I started to examine us as a people. What did we grow up? What were the cultural foods that we grew up actually consuming that has got us to this point today, right? And so I just examined, obviously, the Samoan Polynesian diet. I examined even the American diet. And I said, look, man, if we're gonna play the long game, if we're in it for the long haul, I gotta be very strategic as to what I consume, and mainly as a father. Whatever I knew I was eating, he was gonna replicate, right? I was by example that he was gonna eat these things as well. So about 10 years ago, I decided all right, we're gonna cut out the red meat. All right, we're gonna do the chicken. Now we're gonna do the fish. And it was just a slow process. And lo and behold, now it's more of a plant-based diet. And so when we got into the restaurant business, the first restaurant that it's actually here as well. It's just a dual concept. It's Belief Burgers, and Belief Burgers is a whole menu of, you know, our childhood favorites as far as chicken sandwiches and filet-o-fish and burgers, but it's all vegan, right? So when we launched the concept at another location, it was a dream come true. I almost cried because we had all the polys like lined up at a vegan spot, right? And that was the goal.
That's history.
Right? That was history in and of itself. And so now, wherever I go, my, you know, strategically is to be able to just give our people another option, right? We knew what we grew up on eating. We knew those cultural favorites, but we also know, growing up in the hood, that you got Jack and the Crack and Louis Burgers and Tom's. And, you know, collectively, we've started to see that it has affected us as a people. And although it's a taboo topic, we spoke about it when we were together. I said, look, man, when people ask in terms of my lifestyle, it's like, you know, I don't need science to tell me that my people are dying. And it's a direct effect of what we're actually eating for the last X amount of years, whether it be back in the islands or here. So my goal was to say, look, I'm gonna, like, figuratively and literally put my money where my mouth is. And if I'm gonna put up bread, I'm gonna invest in a vegan restaurant just to plant the seeds. It's not gonna change overnight, but at the least I could be an example for our community, and especially for my son. And for the most part, I'm a results-based person. So at least for the last 10 years, like, I've been able to live a healthier lifestyle. I've been able to rip and run and do what I have to do on a daily basis. And it's a direct effect of a morning routine that I have, as well as the food that I consume. So.
Yeah. Oh, so, you know, a lot of things we've been talking about so far is health and being able to set yourself up financially. But even before you get to that point, you know, I think a lot of things our culture struggles with is confidence to be able to walk into new territories, right? Step into new rooms that you never haven't been before. How have you been able to cultivate that level of confidence that it gives you that ability to walk into these rooms, make these deals? You know what I'm saying? Just how did it start for you?
Well, first off, great question. You know, and I've had personal conversation and I guess you could say cultural conversations with a lot of our folks along my path, right? I believe confidence actually it starts within the home, right? We were fortunate enough, unlike other, I guess you could say Polynesian or Pacific Islander families, my immediate family, there's 10 of us, so 7 boys, 3 girls. And so we grew up in an environment where the dynamic was my parents gave us a platform to actually speak. Growing up Mormon, there's a concept called family home evening, and it's basically a family meeting that you have once a week. And within that meeting, there's prayer, there's song, but there's also a platform for you to actually speak. So although there was 10 of us, parents was like, hey, all right, Fawad, what do you have to say? Joe, what do you have to say? So that was I didn't know at the time, but that started my confidence builder in terms of my own voice, both figuratively and literally, right? Outside of that, growing up within the Mormon church, you're given opportunities to speak in front of the actual congregation. So now I got a second platform to actually overcome that anxiety and that fear of public speaking. I didn't know it at the time, but I was developing my voice, right? So I'm building confidence within my own voice at home, at church. Lo and behold, that translates to school because now I'm like, all right, well, when I speak with that sense of confidence. Oh, I'm gonna run for president. And now I'm running for president. Now I'm doing all these, I started to see it translate into real life, right? But it started actually in the home. And the reason why I bring that up is because along my entrepreneur journey, at some point, I had to walk away from the 9 to 5 and say, you know what? I'm done with that. I have this idea in apparel. I'm gonna take this leap of faith. But as you know, it takes confidence to actually take the leap of faith.
For sure.
Right? And so, lo and behold, because I was able to, build up that self-confidence along my journey, I took the leap of faith and we've been on that journey ever since. However, I bring up this from a cultural standpoint, right? Because along my journey, I'm like, okay, well, that's me. This is my personal journey. What about my counterparts within the Polynesian community? And what I started to see was my friends that I just grew up with. When I would go into their home, I'm like, okay, they don't have the family home component, family home evening component. They don't have a form at the church where they speak. And then what ended up happening, what I also started to see was, as you know, in general, was it's almost disrespectful to speak within the Polynesian household, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, again, a taboo kind of topic that we don't want to talk about, but that's the truth. But the reason why I kept bringing that up was, what does that do to a kid's confidence over time? If in fact it's suppressed at 5 years old and he's never given a platform to actually speak, by the time the kid gets to middle school or even high school, he or she is almost a mute because they never verbally actually gain the confidence in their own voice, figuratively and literally, right? Which is why if you put kids in the classroom and you ask the poly kids to introduce, it's almost like they're like really afraid to even speak, right? So I saw that earlier on. And what I noticed was like, look, when I've been having conversations with other parents my age or whatnot, or even older, I said, look, if in fact you want your kid to go down this entrepreneurial journey, the one thing that they're gonna have is confidence. Because at some point you're gonna say, I'm not gonna go the traditional route. I wanna build a business. This is my last $5,000 that I saved up working at the refinery or whatnot, and I'm gonna bet on myself. That takes confidence to actually do. And that starts in the home. That starts as parents setting an example for our kids to actually build that self-confidence, right? And so I share this with you to drive home this point. When my son was born, I'll talk about him a lot, that from the day he opened his eyes, his name was the champ. And so next month, he turns 24. And if I called you the champ for 24 years,
hey, I would feel like champ.
What would that do to you, right? So that's all he knows. And so I knew at an early age that I had to build that self-confidence within him. So at some point he could stand on his own too. And I started to see it. I would challenge him to say the prayer or speak in front of the congregation or, set up, be the first to in class to raise your hand and do the presentation. Over time, it worked, right? It built his self-confidence to what it was. So, again, I can't help to really emphasize how important it is in terms of confidence and building that confidence over time for our people.
Oh, wow, bro. Hey, man, come stop by and come get you something right here, bro.
There it is. There it is.
You can't might go a little healthy. I'm not going healthy right now, brother.
You talk a lot about what good is having all the success in the world, all the money in the world if you're not a success at home. How have you been able to balance being a father and also being a hustler, going to get it, you know what I'm saying, an entrepreneur? Those two worlds always tend to conflict with each other. How do you balance it?
I just think it's a matter of priority, right? A matter of, I've always said, like, no one's too busy. It's just a matter of priority, right? And so when I solidify what my priorities are in life, obviously my son and my family is the top, right? But even before that, Provide has to do this daily physical and spiritual routine in order for me to be the best father, husband, family man, entrepreneur, leader I can actually be, right? So it's being able to do that daily routine to be able to deliver on being the best family man I could be. And mainly because of not growing up with wealth and being around wealth, I decided to make a concerted effort in building generational wealth. Well, how do I do that? And so I had to displace myself from the community of which I was born and raised in, and I went to where the action is at. And so I lived in these affluent communities, built great relationships with these guys, and I said, okay, well, I want to build an empire like they've built. How do I do that? What are the steps that I have to take to actually do that? And through building great relationships with successful entrepreneurs that were outside of our community, because I didn't see it, I was able to learn the game. And then I said, okay, well, now that I got all this intel, well, now I got to take the leap of faith, and I got to start the first business and second and so on, right? And so the goal was to say, look, as a father, yes, I have my priorities, and I'm also wanting to build this generational wealth that will outlast me, right? And now that, he's, transitioning from football and helping me with the entrepreneur journey, it's been a great ride, for both of us, because I'm building this for him. And it's an example for us as a community, because we visually haven't even seen that yet. A father-son or a father-daughter or a mother or a family that has built an actual successful empire, right? We haven't seen that just yet. So I want to be one of the first to actually do that, to say, look, yes, Provide's done this, but this is my family and this is what we're trying to build, like the Vanderbilts or the Rothschilds
Rockefellers.
The Rockefellers, right? Like, this is what they've done, and all I'm doing is just replicating exactly what they've done over time, right? But it's going to take time, a strong foundation, building relationships. And another thing, especially with our culture, is a lot of times, we want to just huddle within the community, right? And that's okay. But if in fact your vision is not within this community, you got to go where it's at. But even before you do that, there's a sense of confidence that you got to have to move from a Carson and say, all right, well, I'm going to move to Newport Beach. And I'm going to build these relationships with these people because they have the tools to open up a whole nother atmosphere that I'm trying to get to, right? But it takes confidence for you to actually do that. And so that's what I've done. Like, I needed to go where the game was at and build these relationships. And my goal was to say, okay, I've learned this from these guys, come back and build these businesses, and now I want to give it back in real time. And as we mentioned, I don't want to get to this hypothetical place and say, okay, I made it. Okay, Shane, interview me now. Like, no, I want to do it in real time, because I'm taking losses too along the way. None of this is perfect, right? And I want to be able to share that. Like, look, guys, you may be trying to get into the restaurant business or the clothing business, so let me give you guys the game now. Like, this is what I did, and none of it's perfect, but at least you're getting it in real time. We verbalize in these interviews about how important ownership is, because we didn't grow up with that term within the home, right? How important it is to actually discuss money within the home. Obviously, within the Polynesian community, that topic is not discussed. That's another taboo topic, right? But again, it's just like, it's not only within the Polynesian community. I noticed, because I have business partners outside of our community, they've experienced it as well, right? But it's more prevalent within ours. So I want to be able to have these conversations about health, about financial literacy, about ownership, because in order for us to actually impact our community, right? Because I live in an affluent community now, money talks, right? And so if you have businesses within the community, more often than not, you have power as to what happens in the community, right? So if we want to create a little Samoa in Long Beach or in Carson or wherever we're congregated at, well, what are we doing in terms of pushing commerce? How are we affecting the economics of that community, right? And that's the only way you can, have a seat at the table, so to speak. So I noticed that, you know, when I started to do business deals and I'm in these rooms where these are high level, high power figures that are making high level decisions, obviously, again, going back to confidence, one, I was invited because there's certain a value add that I'm bringing to the table.
Yep.
And two, I'm analyzing how they're actually making decisions on behalf of communities, of states. Right? And so when I've seen this, right, I was like, we need a seat at the table. But not only that, in order for us to have a seat at the table, we gotta show that we have a portfolio of companies that affect the economy, right? At the end of the day. So my goal is, again, I'm harping on entrepreneurship. I'm harping on ownership
yeah.
because that's what we need. But it takes, you know, a community to raise our kids a certain way in order for us to actually produce that result, right? So hopefully, man, you know, the goal with the interview was to, you know, provide as much inspiration, but also tactical tools that you guys can actually use in real time.
Yeah.
Like you could take a lot of this and actually utilize it today. And the last thing, in terms of people ask me, you know, the different industries that you may be passionate about, study the business model. I've said this from the beginning. E-Myth, Michael Gerber is one of my favorite books. After Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's the next one you should read. And it just talks about, you know, the structure of a business, right? Of being able to, you know, understand what your superpower is. Are you a visionary or are you the technician, right? And when I started to read these type of books, man, it took me to, you know what I mean? It took me to a whole another level in terms of my journey. So I'm hoping that, you know, a lot of this stuff that you guys could take and apply it today, study the business model that you're trying to get into, whether it's apparel or film or whatever. You get to Shane to get to me or call me or you know what I mean? I'm accessible. I'm doing what I'm doing within the business world for our people. That's what I've been chosen to do, and I'm giving it back, and I'm giving the game back in real time. So whatever resources, relationships I have, it's for us as a people. I'm giving the plug away.
Yeah.
Now again, what you do with that at that point, that ain't on me. Whether you're gonna do the work or burn the plug or do whatever, that's not on me. But I do know that if I have it and I see the talent and you've put in the hard work and you have the infrastructure to execute on like a Nordstrom deal, no, that's just a phone call away. That's just an email away. I love when I see our people rise and thrive, right? Yeah. There's a saying that I love when I see my neighbor winning, because that means God's in the neighborhood. That means you next. That means everybody next.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? So I hope that, you know, everybody that's listening, that's viewing, especially on behalf of our people, man, I hope you got some gems to apply it now in real time. Please contact me if you see me in the city moving around or whatnot. Man, pull me aside, ask me the question. I'm trying to give the game back, yo.
That's love, man. Hey, man, appreciate you for the game,
sir.
man. Hospitality and all that, man. Let's get these burgers. Get these burgers, baby. Let's go.
Sir.
This is the OG burger. See that there? You see all the caramelized onions, that double patty.
I've never even had a vegan burger in my life. Let's see what this tastes like.
Look, I'm plugged in. They gon' knock me up on the bar play. So while I'm at it, the way we did it our way. Got the bullets in line. That's what the star say. Kept the shot, even though it was hard taste. Be sure I say the night.
Hey, this is vegan? Are you sure? I can't even tell the difference.
Without the
Fire.
Damn. Shit. Hold on. That's a burger, bro.
I'm going for a second bite. Oh, wow, bro. Hey, man, come stop by and come get you something right here, bro.
Keep the money on my mind, we gon' get to the cheddar. Tell her I ain't got it down, don't mix the business with pleasure. I can't go backwards, I'm moving. I know she like my voice, think I'm soothing. Homie, don't be